Late Night Joe. On local BBC radio.
That is me, and it's lovely to have your company, and I know many of you are lying in bed listening to me. It's chilly out there, so I'm not surprised, as long as you're nice and comfortable. And don't forget, after 11 o'clock, Chewing the Fat, tonight with only 2 contributors. Who are they? You will discover after the 11 o'clock news. Now, we always, on this show, like to introduce you to shows that have, how can I put this diplomatically, a far lower budget than the massive, great big commercial tours and West End shows. We love to dig out the shows that you may seldom hear about unless you're tuning into a radio station such as this. And this one is one such show. Sarah Wesker led the strikes that improved working conditions for thousands of women who were garment workers. But nobody has ever heard of her. The pioneering union leader's story is depicted in the one-woman play called Chopped Liver and Unions, which features the actress Lottie Walker. The production is from Blue Fire Theatre Company. They are touring the country. We'll give you the dates at the end of this chat. And I'm pleased to say the artistic director and the actress, Lottie Walker, who stars as Sarah Wesker, joins me on Late Night Joe. Hello, Lottie.
Hello, Joe. How are you?
Very well. Your name suits you. Really, Lottie is such a great name. And I've looked at images of you, and it's a historical name. It's quite a quaint name, isn't it?
But Lottie Walker?
Yes.
Yes, I chose it myself, so I obviously did something right.
You did it absolutely right. So let's, first of all, before we talk about your company, let's talk about the plays you perform, because you perform plays for famous, as yet unheard of people, women, should I say. This is inspired, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, I started doing this, about 6 years ago, because I was training as a tour guide, and I got some really interesting stories that were kind of the stories behind the stories of the famous people. And there are so many people out there, particularly women, who, they've done great things. They were really successful, and nobody knows who they are. So we've got a show going round about a music hall star who no one's heard of, and the lovely Sarah, of course, who's my favourite, I have to say, who did so much, achieved so much, and has basically been written out of history. So until now.
Let's talk about Sarah. And as you say, this was pre-social media, so these people, unlike myself, couldn't flag themselves up. Do you know what I mean? They were like, once they died, often their history was buried with them. So it's wonderful that that you've stumbled upon them. First of all, who was the music hall artist that no one had heard of?
Oh, this is Nellie Power. So Nellie
she was in Variety, obviously.
Yes, a long, long time ago. So she was like, I think she died in 1870 something. But she was the first person to sing "The Boy I Love Is Up in the Gallery."
I thought that was
Mari
Lloyd, yes.
Yeah, no, Mari Lloyd nicked it, and that's the name of that show. Actually, is Mari Lloyd Stole My Life.
Oh, I love that! What a great! Oh my gosh, I love the idea of that. Anyway, let's move back to Sarah Wesker. So, as I said in my introduction, she was an activist. She campaigned to improve working conditions for women who worked in garment factories, and I would imagine then that's in the north of England, was it?
No, it was in the East End.
Oh.
In the East End of England.
Right.
And she lived in Spitalfields.
Oh.
In the, called the Rothschild buildings. And the first, I think it's the first strike that she led. She led many strikes. She couldn't help herself. But the first one was because the factory owners wanted to move the factory and everyone could keep their jobs, but for no extra money and 2 hours a day extra travelling. And she wasn't having that. So that was one of the strikes. And there was another occasion when apparently some of these, it was a real sweatshop then, far worse than anything we know now.
Let's just put a date on this. This was during the Victorian times, was it?
No, this is later. This is 1920s right. And 30s.
And was she working in one of these factories herself?
She was a seamstress, and she there was one occasion where I think they used to tie them to the desk sometimes and always lock the doors so they they didn't stop working, all for a pittance of money. And there was a woman who was ill, and Sarah basically literally fought the foreman to get her out of the room. So she was a feisty person, considering she was under 5 feet tall.
Oh, you see, I'm 5 foot tall. We're like terriers. When you're short, you overcompensate. You become terrier-like. So I'm growing. Sarah is growing on me more and more. Was she supported by, obviously not by the employers, but was she supported by her peers, by the women that she represented?
She was. I think it was a bit of a long slog for her, to be honest, because they were quite a meek workforce, and they were very much sort of in deference to the men. They earned less than the men. They just sort of got on and did their job. But she was a really fiery speaker, Sarah. They said about her even though she was so little, when she spoke, it was as though 5 men were talking. So she basically she galvanized them all, got them on side, and they sang all these wonderful songs to raise money, because they weren't in a union. The unions wouldn't have the women then. So Sarah set up her own, which was great. But they sang songs and raised money. They had a songbook published, all these popular tunes that they wrote their own words to.
And were they successful? I mean, it's really interesting. You say, women were never allowed into unions, so they started their own unions. But were these unions recognised?
They became recognised when they became successful, and then they got amalgamated into the general unions.
Good
and they all
for them.
became part of the T, you see. So yeah, it is quite a success story, really. What's sad though is that with some of our publicity stuff, we wanted to actually get the original union banners and see what they were like, but they just all disappeared. So as the more amalgamation has happened, and they've all been sucked up into the bigger unions, I think a lot of the old stuff has gone.
What a shame. Because think of all the suffragette memorabilia that is still around. I mean, there's loads of it in the London Museum. There's loads of the stuff. The fact that she was a real pioneer for women to be part of a union. I mean, that was trailblazing. Such a shame that there's none there. Do you know what I found really interesting reading into this is she was a relative of Arnold Wesker, the playwright.
She was his auntie. Yes.
So was he old enough to see what she achieved?
I don't think he saw so much, but he knew her very well. And I was very lucky when we started this process. His widow, Lady Wesker, contacted me. His son, the late Dan Wesker, was really helpful. Dan even sent me some pictures that he'd found on the internet of things that he thought I should wear, which was great.
Wow.
And Dusty was fabulous. She gave me lots of family anecdotes and things of what Auntie Sarah was like. And there's a nice interview that was published with Sir Arnold when he was talking about her, and he said she was a staunch feminist and a rampant communist, and of course she was one of the inspirations for his play Chicken Soup with Barley.
No, I had no idea. I'm such a fan of Arnold Wesker. I had no idea. And did you say his wife was called Dusty?
Yes.
I love that.
Yes. Isn't that lovely?
So can I ask, because Lottie, this is your company, it's a one-woman show. You are performing in the most interesting venues. I'm going to read them out in a moment. What is it? Who is your audience?
Do you know, that's such an interesting question, because I'm never cease to be surprised by our audience. We took this show to New York a couple of years ago, and I thought no one in New York is going to be remotely interested in a little East End girl who set up a union back in the 20s and sang some little catchy tunes. And we did so well because everyone there has got a corresponding story. So, they have the history of the immigration and the strikes and the garment industry. And we took the show to Exeter, and lots of people, it was interesting actually listening to your earlier guest about the rural stuff, because lots of people out in the West Country have similar issues. Everyone's got an issue, haven't they? If they're either female or they're a worker and, underrepresented. So we have a really broad base as far as audience goes. And in one venue, actually, which was wonderful, we had some young doctors, some junior doctors who had been on strike recently, and
yes.
they were singing on the picket line, and they thought they'd invented that.
Oh, wow.
So,
And then
I
you
know.
said, no, Sarah had done it before.
Absolutely. Burst their bubble.
I honestly, hats off to you. I think this is fantastic. I've seen the images of you. You look wonderful as well when you're performing this. So can I give everybody listening the dates, and if you are lucky enough to be able to get to any of these venues, if you're listening to us in Brighton, I know we have a massive audience in Brighton, Sarah is going to be there. So that the company is called the Blue Fire Theatre Company. She's going to be at Brighton's Lantern Theatre on the 28th of this month, and then back there on the 1st of March, at the Tabard Theatre in Chiswick on March the 22nd and March the 23rd and March the 24th. There are two performances on the 22nd, matinee performance as well. So that's at Chiswick's Tabard Theatre. And then in the Wingfield Barns in Suffolk on the 18th of April. And if you're in Norfolk, then the Corn Hall in Norfolk on the 2nd of July. Now, if you want to book tickets for these or find out where the tours will be after that, what other shows Lottie is touring, go to Blue Fire Theatre, all one word, Blue Fire Theatre, all one word, .co.uk. This is an email that's just come through from Timothy, who says, great show. Please tell Lottie to contact the Music Hall Society because they may have more information on what she's been trying to find. I don't know if that means anything to you, Lottie. Would it?
That's very kind. Thank you very much, Timothy. That's
Thank
brilliant.
you, Timothy. Thank you for that. Listen, good luck, Lottie. And when is the music hall one? Do you do them in repertoire?
I do them when they come up, actually. So any theatres out there looking for random shows, I'm your woman. And by the way, Joe, can I just say thank you for doing what you do to help us out, us little people?
Oh my gosh,
it's very tough out there, and the minnows, we are there.
I would do anything to help the smaller theatre companies, truly, because I also say this is the most interesting theatre. Quite frankly, I've had enough of musicals, Lottie. I truly have. These great big spectacular shows, I've had enough of them. I wish they'd just rest now and we'd just go back to putting on really good theatre. So you're always welcome on the show. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic tour, won't you?
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, and see you again.
See you.
This Saturday and Sunday, actress Lottie Walker is bringing her solo show Chopped Liver and Unions to Brighton's Lantern Theatre in Kemp Town. I asked Lottie to tell us more about Chopped Liver and Unions.
Well, I'm really pleased you said that first, because most people say, oh, the Onions play, which is quite funny. So it is about a lady called Sarah Wesker, who was a trade unionist and a bit of a feminist. And the interesting things are she led the Singing Strikers of 1928. So they used to march about and sing on the picket lines, and we're using their original songs in the show. And she became the inspiration for her nephew, Sir Arnold Wesker's play Chicken Soup with Barley. She was quite a woman, has to be said, and no one knows about her.
We're going to find out more by coming and seeing your show. So we're taking us back to 100 years ago. So what was it like for women in the workforce then?
It was awful, especially in her line of business. She was a seamstress in one of what were actual sweatshops in the garment industry in the East End of London. And the women were locked in. They were all on piecework. They did the same work as the men next door and didn't get paid anywhere near as much money. And they were all quite a cowed little workforce, really. No one wanted to speak up and say anything because they didn't have a union. So Sarah decided she was going to speak up anyway, and she formed her own union. And apparently she was only about 4'9", I think. She was a tiny little thing, but she had a very big voice. And she was, so when she spoke, it was like 5 men were speaking. So she was obviously a really good person to galvanise the workforce, and that's what she did. So And because there was no union, in order to actually get some money so that they could survive, bless them, they sang these songs, and they actually had a book published of the songs they sang. So it was all popular tunes that people would recognise, and they just changed the names to say nasty things about the factory owners and things. So that's all quite fun.
That's fun.
Those.
Could you give us a little blast of one of the songs, maybe? Is that asking too much this time in the morning?
There's a lovely little one about one of the factories, and it says, the Rego girls are marching with their spirits all aglow, shouting out their battle cry of freedom, which is not what you would expect from a nursery rhyme. So, you know.
You wouldn't. Well, she sounds like an amazing character, amazing woman to portray, and also uncover a story that maybe people haven't heard of yet.
There are so many people who have really achieved a lot, and lots of women who have achieved a lot. And we're actually doing this as part of the Her Stories series at the Lantern, which is Women's History Month, because she's basically been written out of history. So we're putting that right now.
Lottie Walker there. You can see her show Chopped Liver and Unions at Brighton's Lantern Theatre in Kemp Town this Friday and Saturday.